What's going on? Let's dive into steps. I know this is something that seems trite. It seems like everyone already knows how many steps you need to take, and everyone already knows that you need to take steps. Everyone already knows that you need to have your activity up. Well, some people don't. And other people, by their actions, don't seem to assign the same value to this that we really should. And I say should, not I do, because this is something that empirically we can prove is overwhelmingly beneficial to your life, right? This is not a preference thing. This is you need to do this to have overall health. Now, the way in which you do it, that's a completely different story. How you get your steps in, what intervals you do them in, the speed you do them in, the time of day you do them in, is all up to you. Getting them in versus not getting them in is not in the question, right? It's you need to do it. Period, end of story, okay? You're an adult, you act like one, these are great for you. And we're going to go into a little bit of why and how we're actually going to execute. So overall, thesis here is just that steps are vital. They absolutely 100% are. We want to increase overall activity level. You can do this easiest by steps. You don't have to have a gym. You don't have to have much space. You have to just be able to move your little feet and go outside, walk around the building, walk on a treadmill, walk down the hall. If you're in an apartment building or you're in a house, you can walk up and down your stairs. Is it not the most fun sometimes? Sure, maybe it's a little boring, but we're not worried about that. So what do we want to hit for steps overall in the day? I will link the study that this came from, but realistically, when we're talking about people that are over 60 years old, right now, we are looking somewhere between 6 and 8K a day, okay? And if you're younger than 60 years old, what we're looking at is 8 to 10,000 a day. And we're going to go over what that actually means, practically speaking, but overall, this is the targets that I'm going to say that you should try to hit, as well as the things that will put you in the best position to have healthier day-to-day, healthier life, what have you. So overall, that's a step focus. That's the goal. That's the outcome that we're looking for. Now, going back to the importance of this, right? We're talking about all-cause mortality going down by so much as like 40% for cardiovascular disease. With cardiovascular disease and other things, all-cause mortality there, around these numbers, okay? And I'll link the study. I don't want to misspeak, but I will link that study below, and you can look at the prevalence of cardiovascular disease and how that correlates with how many steps we're getting in our age and a bunch of other factors. So like, you want the empirical data, don't argue with me. Just look at the study. It'll be able to tell you. You can reference everything there. But all in all, overall activity level being up is extremely important. It's extremely important because most of us sit around. Most of us drive to work. We sit at a desk for work, and we're in a position that is flexed or is extended for long periods of time, and we're not really moving in between, right? So overall, we find ourselves in a position where we're seated. We have tons of food at our disposal. We have tons of things that are racking dopamine, and tons of things that are messing with our brains while we're sitting down all day, every day. And so we don't get the steps in, right? Not only is it important for lowering all-cause mortality, but it's also important for mind, right? It's very easy to get lost in the sauce when you have a screen this far from your face, right? When you have a screen this far from your face, when you're sitting here and you're looking down, looking forward, and glued, a foot in front of you. Widening your horizon line, widening the horizon for you is really something that has more benefits than just all-cause mortality, okay? We're talking about mental benefits, we're talking about clarity, we're talking about energy, we're talking about focus, we're talking about a lot of things here. Auditory flow, optical flow, a lot of things outside of just all-cause mortality, because like most people don't think about that or worry about that as much in their 20s or 30s or 40s as they do when we're talking about 70s, 80s, 90s, if you have the capability to make it that far. So overall, it's important, right? Steps in general, activity in general, and I'm hammering down on steps because I think that that's the easiest way to get it, to get overall activity to be up. It's the easiest way to do it without having to have access to equipment, a trainer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that it is honestly the best way to go. And I'm going to make sure that this is still recording, because the other day I was recording and it wasn't recording. My audio was, but the video was not. So overall, right, we talked about what the step goals are here. We talked about the importance, and we're going to talk about the added benefits. And this is mental acuity. This is clarity. This is more range of motion. Okay. Not only is long-term health improved, but also we have less stovey joints, right? Less creaking, less inability to move, right? On top of that, you can take phone calls, right? You can listen to music, you can clear your head, you can do some brainstorming, you can listen to a podcast, you can take in a book, you can do a lot of things, right? While you're walking and getting all those steps in, because overall, 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 is a ton of, that's a ton of steps. And at the end here, we're going to talk about what that means for miles and what that means for time. But for now, we're talking about added benefits. There's so many, right? It's a way to bridge community too, right? To walk with your friends, to get outside, get away from the screens and have some in-person interaction while also bettering your health. And I think that outside of just overall activity being up, so all-cause mortality being down, I think that the mental clarity, if you're solo, or the ability to learn while walking is extremely beneficial in a way that if you're driving or riding a bike or moving at higher speeds and you're in control of a vehicle or a piece of machinery, like it can be a little bit dangerous if you get too lost in the sauce there, but walking, it's a little bit different unless you just close your eyes, right? So talking about some added benefits there, we're good. So how do we actually do this though? Right? You're like, whoa, 6 to 8,000 or 8 to 10,000, that's a hell of a lot of steps. Yeah, and realistically, right, we do this by breaking it up, okay? So I'm going to kind of skip. We're actually going to go here next, talking about step math. So realistically, 1 mile equals 2 to 2.5K steps. Now, this is going to depend on a lot of things. What's your gait? How tall are you? How big of steps? How fast are you moving? What is happening there? I would say that you're good to go thinking that every single mile is just this bigger number, right? That's going to take 2,500, 2.5K, 2,500 steps to hit a mile. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, most of us don't walk at 8-minute pace a mile. Most of us walk somewhere between 12 to 20-minute miles. So if you're to break it down, you say, hey, we've got, for 10,000 steps, right? For 10,000 steps, right, 2.5K would be 1 mile. That means that we need 2.5K, right, times 4. Because 2 would be 5, and then plus 5 equals 10,000 steps. So let's say our goal for this explanation right here is at 10,000 steps. Well, if it's at 10,000 steps and we know that we get about 2.5 for every mile, and we walk between 12 and 20-minute miles, if we say on the high end, that's a 20-minute mile, right? We need to get 10,000, so there's about 4 miles, right? That means that it's going to take 80 minutes, which means it's going to take 1 hour, 20 minutes. Okay, and that's if you're walking super slow, right? So an hour of 20 minutes. And I've gone through a time study of how most people are living their life out here, even if you are working 12 hours, you got kids, you got all kinds of other crap going on. That's not to say that you got to live your life this way or that way. But if you're thinking about how you could make this happen, right? How you could make this happen. If we're looking at an hour and 20 minutes, right? An overall hour and 20 minutes. Some ways that we do it most of the time for our clients is we break that up into kind of either 1, 2, or kind of 3 things. One would be half and half, okay? And that would be half at the front of the day and half at the back of the day. That would be, we're talking about 80 minutes there. That's about 40 minutes of walking, so almost about 3/4 of an hour before we start work and then after at some point, right? Number 2, what you could do, and what a lot of people do, is go thirds, right? Okay, so if we have 80 minutes, right? If we have 80 minutes, that's just shy of like a little over 25 minutes. Right? 3 times. So if we have 80 minutes, we got a little over 25 minutes 3 times. Most people have a lunch break that's like 45 minutes to an hour. Now, not everyone, but most people have that, and they're not in supervision of other humans, kids, what have you, or, prisoners, etc. So for the people that aren't in direct supervision with other people, boom, you could break it up into thirds, right? So like 27, right? 28 minutes before you go to work, 28 minutes at lunch, and then 28 minutes at the end of the day, right? When you get off work. You could do that. If you have an overly active job, you might be getting close to these steps already without having to do anything, and that's wonderful. That's beautiful. That's amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. For those of us that sit at the desk or work remote or are sitting and driving while we're working, this can be a little bit daunting. Okay, so most of the clients that I've worked with, and most of our TC clients in general, even with our other coaches, they go half and half. Some other ones go thirds, okay? But the least frequent method that's used, but another method that I've seen come up consistently as it pertains to any method is actually used, probably the third most method is going to be, right, we call it on the hour. Okay, so on the hour, the way that works is that's similar to when you're exercising, you do something like on the minute. Okay, on the hour is the same format, right? So on the minute would be you have X amount of prescribed exercise every minute on the minute, and when the minute comes up, boom, you go do it. Same thing here with on the hour. Now, the difference with on the hour is that it's a 60-minute interval to do XYZ, not a 60-second interval to do XYZ. So if you're at a more sedentary job, right, and you have an 8-hour workday, well, look at this. If we have 80 minutes of walking that we need to do on the high end, saying that 1 mile is 2,500 steps and we're trying to get 10,000, well then what we could do is every hour on the hour, you could walk for 10 minutes on the top of the hour. It's another way to get it in. Now, are these the only 3 ways that you can get it in? Absolutely not. Are there tons of other ways that you could do it and break it up? 100%. And if one of these is not it for you and you want to use a different format or a different version, beautiful, go for it. What I want you to understand is that we're trying to hit 6 to 8 if we're over 60 years old. If we're under 60 years old, we're trying to hit 8 to 10, right? They're extremely important, not only for all-cause mortality going down, but then also other added benefits like mental acuity, optical flow, auditory flow, just clearing your head in general. Life can be kind of stressful and we can be, rolled over and and we don't want to do that. It's very easy to break it down on how we can do it, right? And then just understanding the math. Most of us are between 2,000 to 2,500 steps per mile. So if you just think about doing 4 miles a day and we're walking super slow, then beautiful, 80 minutes. As you get better at this, it'll take less time, right? You'll probably walk a little bit faster with a little bit more urgency, and you'll be good. If all else fails and you walk super slow, well then it'll take you 80 minutes. But if that's where it starts today, and then, a month or 2 from now, it's taking you an hour to do, right? Because you're walking 15-minute miles, beautiful, even less time to hit the daily minimums. Now, this is not talking about all kinds of exercise, right? But this is just the easiest way that I've found to up your overall activity with almost little to no effort, because you can multitask while you're doing this. Hop on the phone, check meetings, take a meeting, just audio only. You can listen to a podcast. You can listen to an audio book. You can hop on the phone with mom. You can go walk with friends. You can take your coffee meetups that you would have and just take them in person walking. Grab coffee and walk. Okay, all of that can work. I hope this was helpful, and if it wasn't, that sucks. And I'll try again later. Hope that helps. Peace.